Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. I'm here with Claudine, and we're here to talk about the reopening of Notre Dame. As Claudine has been mentioning, we might be renaming the podcast Notre Dame with Claudine Hemingway because she's a super fan. She's already entered 3 times in 1 week, so let's hear all about it.
Yeah, we're taking a brief break from everything else in Paris because it's all about Notre Dame. I mean, we've been waiting 5 years and almost 8 months to get back in. So we've covered everything on the outside. Now we get to go back inside.
Yeah, and she has all the stories of the workers making this such a dream come true.
Yeah, that's the one thing I cannot every time I've been in is just to the labor of love that Notre Dame was for the people that worked on it. And I'm going to share a couple of the behind the scenes stories of a few of the things. But I read so much about the different workers, and some of them saying, that it's amazing to go and hand it off. It was their own private place, for these 2,000 some odd workers. It was their own private place for the last 5 years. And now they hand it over. And it's like, it's got to be at the same time, so exciting. It also has to be kind of sad.
Yeah, imagine having the Louvre to yourself for like 5 years. That would be insane.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to do events, and so I could have an event that I was working on for 6 months, and I did every part of it, designing it, working with the chef on the menu, setting it up, doing the flowers, everything. And there was always this kind of like a little bit like post event depression. It's kind of like, the day after Christmas, you're like, it was so pretty and beautiful, and I guess that's over.
The end.
The end. But if hopefully everybody was able to see some of the opening, and one of the things with the opening, and I'm actually really surprised because I have not really seen this written at all by anybody. So I don't know if it's just a story that really didn't get picked up or it wasn't really shared, but I think it's kind of one of the coolest things of the entire opening ceremony. So it opened on December 7th was the first night. That's when the dignitaries and the whole ceremony of reopening the church happened. And it was around 7:40 p.m. Paris time. And the Archbishop of Paris, Laurent Ulrich, he went to the center door, which is the door of the Last Judgment, and he knocked on the door. And the beginning of it was this conversation that he was having with the cathedral itself. So he knocked on the door, but he knocked on it with this crozier, which is like a staff. And when he knocked on it, and then Psalms 121 was sung by the choir inside the church. And he did this 3 times. So he knocked on it saying, but the coolest thing, I think, is the crozier itself. And the night of the fire, of course, we all know because it's probably our generations of, where were you when this happened? And the pieces of the roof, pieces of the forest, as it was called, were charred. And there's that famous picture the day after with it just piled up in front of the altar. And some of those pieces were really huge. Well, every single piece that fell, every stone, every little bit of even the iron fixtures that were at the very top of the roof, all of the stuff that survived the fire and fell, they've saved it all. So they took one of these really big beams and they carved it and polished it and put this blue glass in the center of it, and it was made for the opening ceremony. So when you see it, and I will put a picture on my website, when he bangs on the door, he's banging on the door with a piece that fell the night of the fire.
That's pretty emotional. That's wild.
I know. I just every time I think about it, I get like goosebumps, and it just and when he did it, and then he pushed the door open. So it's this massive door. I mean, he was probably, a sixth of the size. He pushes open this door. And when he did that, that's when I lost it. I just completely started crying because it was so beautiful and the light comes out. And it was just kind of him with the door of him saying, like, hello, Notre Dame, can we come back inside?
I love that he asked permission and all the work they put into it. We were in Normandy for Giuseppe's birthday. We all watched it on TV. And we
Yeah, it was, I mean,
were
I for 2 days, that's all I did was watch all of this stuff. And I think on Sunday afternoon, I was like, I must get out for a walk.
must leave the couch.
Yeah, but when you walk in now and everything changes. So this whole last week, there's been special masses every morning. The mass for the Pompiers of Paris Sunday morning. Sadly, I will not be there. That is probably the one of the whole week that I would have wanted to be at. But starting on Monday, December 16th, it goes back to normal. So it goes back to the 7:45 in the morning opening. There will be a mass every morning at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday and 8:30 on the weekends. But it is also a little bit different because most likely they usually don't let you walk around during mass. So if you do go, I tell people that the time that's going to go is to be at 7:45 because of course there is a ton of interest of people coming to see it. There's a lot of confusion on how you do it and if you have to have tickets and all of that kind of stuff, which we'll kind of tell you at the end. But you could, I think in the morning is going to be kind of the sweet spot. And even if you're not Catholic, it's kind of fun to sit there through mass one time and you just follow along. If people stand up, you stand up. If they sit down, you sit down. That's what I do.
Yeah, follow along. I
Yeah,
love
I just follow along. But it is really neat. But when you come into the church, and when I walked in there the other day for the very first time, like I knew, like even walking there, I started like to feel like my knees were shaky. And I walk in there and I go through the door, and as soon as I went through the door, I couldn't handle it. And I just started to well up with tears, and I tried to make a little video, and I had to do it like 12 times before I could finally get through even like 6 words without choking back tears. And it just was the most amazing thing to be back inside. And it's really strange because for me, I mean, I loved it before the fire, and every time I was in Paris, I would spend time there. But in the last 5 years, partially because of the podcast, I've, researched and into every single aspect. I've kept track of every single movement, what date they did this, and what day the spire was at finished, and so I have this like incredibly intimate, you know, connection with it. So being back inside was a little surreal at the same time as it looks completely different because it's so clean, but then it's also like you also instantly feel like you never left. It's very strange and it's pretty overwhelming when you walk back in.
Yeah, and I love like seeing your reaction and the emotion. It like gets everyone emotional because it's been such a long time.
It is, and there's so many posting things about it on Instagram all week. And I ask people to, send me their first picture. Like, do you remember the first time you were there? And I got so many fantastic pictures from people going back to like the 70s and 60s of people that took of Notre Dame and the stories. And it's like it's one of those things that it's everybody, a lot of people have their own special attachment to it and their own reason why. So that's why I would say Notre Dame kind of transcends. First and foremost, it is a place of worship and it's a cathedral, but I think it kind of transcends all of that. And I think we know that because of, the night of the fire and the way that the outpouring was, and the amount of money they raised from almost every corner of the world. It really does mean a lot to everyone in their own little way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was shocked at the outpouring of emotion when it was burning. I didn't know so many people cared and, everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, it was pretty, but so it's strange to feel like, oh, like it was for so long. I thought, oh my gosh, when I'm walking down the Seine and I look up and, it's so strange to see her without a roof. And now it's like, oh, there she is. Her roof is back, the spire is back, and it's like it never left. So I don't know if our brain just plays a trick and just gets rid of all the bad parts, but it's pretty amazing to be able to see it and to, for us to have the chance to watch it all along. And it's far from done. There's about 3 or 4 more years of work to do. They still need to finish the spire. They haven't added the statues back, of course. There's a lot of work to do on the outside, the buttresses and the chevet at the back. And then there's going to be a massive replanting and adding like 100 trees, getting rid of parking spaces to extend it all the way to the end of the island. So there's still a ton of work to be done. So I have a lot of people that have sent me messages saying, oh, but there's still scaffolding and it looks like it's not done. And it's like, you know what? It's just done enough for us to be safely back inside. And that's really all that matters.
Exactly. It takes time. I mean, it was on fire.
Yeah. And the rest of it's cosmetic. So, I'm fine.
Exactly. We got the
I'm
best part back.
Yeah, but when you go into the church, it's a little bit different. The pathway used to go in through the door on the south of the facade that was the Bordeaux of Sainte Anne, who is the mother of Mary, and now you go in through the center door, which is the Last Judgment, and they do have this fancy like scanner thing you walk through, and I don't know what it's doing, but it obviously if they even usually on my bracelets usually always set off those things in museums and I always just lift up my arm and show them, but it doesn't even do that. So I don't know what this thing is doing, if it's just like really sensitive, but kind of keep in mind about not bringing too much stuff with you if you do, just the speed of getting in. But when you walk in, they've changed the chapels, which we'll go into more in the next week, so a couple of weeks. But you walk in and you go to the north side, and those first chapels are about the path of promise and the Old Testament. And then the back side is about the apparition of the risen Christ when you go through the back. And then when you come back out, it's the path of the Pentecost, which is the New Testament. They've added 7 new tapestries were commissioned that they've added to the chapels. And then the lames, which we've talked about before, that I love, the massive paintings. They moved all of those. They're all in different places than they used to be, which, is my nirvana and also headache. But they moved those to the first chapels on the north and the south, and they've even added another one. So they've brought one back that was at a elsewhere to come back into the church, which is pretty exciting. But one thing that I'm kind of bummed out about is they didn't return everything to the chapel. So there's reliquaries and like, beautiful golden crucifix and all these kinds of things that did not come back, including, which I'm really sad about, the huge candlesticks that were used at the coronation of Napoleon. And they said that whatever was in the church on April 14th, 2019, it was supposed to be in there when it reopened. So the treasury that's in the sacristy that's been closed, and that reopens this week. So I'm definitely going to go in there this week, and I'm hoping some of that stuff is in there. So one thing that they did not add back in is a lot of the details that were in the chapels, which really makes me sad, including the candlesticks that were used at the coronation of Napoleon. I literally been waiting to make some videos and another part of the episode of the podcast about that. I was waiting until the reopening so that I could go in there and see the candlesticks, and they're not there. So they might be in the treasury, which reopens this week, and I'm going to go check it out and see, I hope, because it kind of makes me sad. There is something about it because it is so white that's almost kind of sterile about the cathedral. It'll be dirty in no time because this last week, the amount of times I've been there and watched how many masses they've been doing, the incense and the candles, they do 10,000 candles a day, and the church is going to be dirty in no time. But it's kind of It looks like they've just removed a lot of things that used to be there before that kind of made the church special, and that kind of bums me out.
Do you think they'll put the stuff in museums?
Well, yeah, I mean, because they're going to build a huge museum in the Hotel Dieu across the street, and that was a plan before the fire. So hopefully, in the next couple of years they do that. There's also the Treasury. So I know that they were bringing, they found a piece the robe that Napoleon was wearing when he was coronated, and they were restoring that, and they said that was going to be in the treasury. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe there's a little thing in there that'll have the candlesticks, but the treasury is not very big, and it was already pretty full. So, but I don't know, and I haven't been able to find much about it. And then the updated little visitor book that you could buy when you walk in for 10 euros, it just basically has two paragraphs about the chapels in general. And of course, I wanted to have details and talk about every single chapel and who it's named for because they've changed all the names. Most of the chapels now have two different names. So what it was because of what the walls are painted and then also who it's been changed to. But they don't really even have like this is who Saint Martin was or so that kind of stuff, and I know that I'm an anomaly and I'm just a nerd and I want all the information, but I know there's others out there that do too.
Exactly. There are other nerds.
There are other nerds united. I love you. But one of the things that you might have noticed, and they've continued to do this all week, at the opening, if when you watched it, the amazing vestments, the robes and everything that the bishop and all the priests were wearing were done by one of my favorites, Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. He is known, I share all the time when I find his chalk angels that he leaves all over the city. But he's been a designer for quite some time. He designed a really famous coat covered with teddy bears that Lady Gaga and Drake and all these other people have bought and worn. He's very, pop culture-ish. But he worked for Bennett. He did design for Benetton, but he was asked to do the robes, and he did robes for Pope John II when they had the World Youth Day, and I think that was 1990. So he was asked to do this, and they were pretty amazing. Do you remember seeing those? There was all the bright primary colors on them.
Yeah, I thought that was so different for the church.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I just love him so much. So he did it. So it was a wool gabardine that was kind of the ecru color, which is supposed to represent the beautiful cleaned limestone that's in the church. And then the little pieces where there's little fragments were representing the stained glass windows. I also thought they looked kind of like when you look at a ermine, like the ermine cloak, the what do they call it? The mantle I think is what they call it, basically like the train and the robe that Napoleon and Josephine were wearing in the coronation. It kind of has that same that's what it kind of reminded me of as well. And then the colors represent different things. So the red represents the blood of Christ, blue for Mary, green for hope, and yellow is for the gold. So the gold that you see in the church. And then the brushed gold elements, it was inspired by the cross that is over the Pietà in the back of the church that was done in 1994. But it was really amazing. And they've been wearing them all week. And then afterwards, because he had to do 2,000, there were 700 different designs, 2,000 pieces. And then after this week, every single parish is going to get one in Paris. So they'll be able to use them for special events. And Notre Dame will still use those for special events. But I don't think they're going to go back to using them daily. But I was able to see some very closely on the priest this week and stuff. And it's really cool. And I just love, because I love him so much that he was able to do that. And what an incredible honor.
Yeah, that's great to know because when we were watching it on TV, we're like, whoa, what's this like new look?
Yeah, and I know you're watching with Camille, and Camille knows how much I love John Charles because when we've gone to lunch, we've found the chalk angels walking around the city. So,
Relatable.
yeah, I love them. So, another thing, when you do walk in, and everybody that has been able to see the pictures, the whole thing about how bright the church is. There's 42,000 square meters of stone that were cleaned. Obviously, the pieces in some of the vaults where, the spire came crashing through, those were rebuilt. But every 42,000 square meters is what was cleaned. Every inch of that church was cleaned by, and some of them, like the stained glass restorers, said that really the stained glass was fine. It just was so dirty. So it took them, like the chapels, that the walls are painted in the chapels. Some of them were just fine once they cleaned it. It took 2 months to clean them, but then all they had to do was touch up a few little things. So really, that 160 years of dirt, because the last big cleaning of the church was 160 years ago when Viollet-le-Duc restored it.
Wow, it took them a long time and a fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. But the reason it looks so bright too is those beautiful chandeliers. And every day that I was there, I would sit in a spot, or sometimes I would just find a corner, or I'd sit at the base of a column and just look up and look around and just take in everything. But every day I still found myself sitting underneath one of these chandeliers and looking up, and they're beautiful. So in the nave, which is the center part of the church, there's 13 of them. They're bronze fixtures. They were designed by Viollet-le-Duc in 1848. They are 8 feet tall and they weigh 660 pounds. And they're in the nave. There are also two in the choir. And then there's fixtures. There's 60 sconces throughout the church and the sacristy. And then there's the beautiful kind of crown chandelier that's in the very back where the crown of thorns reliquary is. And two of those actually fell the night of the fire. One of them was actually struck by the spire itself. So in 2023, they were sent to a lamp atelier in the south of France, the Matier Lustière. And the Henry Mathieu was the one who started the company in 1948, but when he passed away, the company his family just closed the company until 1990, when his son Regis decided to reopen the workshop because he inherited the love of these forgotten chandeliers that his father also had. So they were the perfect caretakers for these precious items of Notre Dame. They were so dirty from soot and incense and just time. They thought that the luster was lost forever. But they restored. They had a couple of the sconces that were in the sacristy that didn't, get touched at all by the fire or the water or anything. So they were able to use that for the color. It took them over 300 tries to match the color of the bronze. And what they found out, it was a tinted vegetable varnish that was used to get the bright yellow bronze color. And if you look at them today, and I'll put pictures up, they're gorgeous and they're so shiny. And 80% of the two, especially that fell, are still original. They did have to make some new pieces because they just got so dented and destroyed in the fire. But that's pretty amazing. And that's just another one of the stories that I think how Reggie, his father, would be so incredibly proud of him and the company that they were chosen and involved, and they restored every single light fixture in Notre Dame.
That's insane. Like, and even that they did it in 5 years.
Yeah, and they did it. Yeah, they didn't. I mean, they did it in a year because they were given they in 2023.
It's insane. Like they work so fast.
Yeah, they worked so fast. They had so many people that were doing it in the south of France. And when I was doing some research on it, I even found that they opened up their atelier so people could come and visit and actually watch them working on it, which is so cool, which I wish I would have known before, because I definitely would have gone down there. One other cool little thing I'll share today is the reliquary for the crown of thorns. So on my YouTube videos that I do every week, that I've been doing around Notre Dame and giving updates the last couple months, I was saying that I didn't really love this, that I don't know, but what I was also seeing was like the artist rendering, like, AI kind of thing. and I've changed my tune now that I've seen it. But in 2005, the cardinal at the time, Jean-Marie Lustiger, was asked, this architect and artist, Sylvain Dubuisson, to create a new reliquary for the crown of thorns. But the cardinal died in 2007, so the project kind of just fell away. But in 2023, the bishop Ulrich that we have now called out of the blue to Dubuisson and asked him if he could design something for the crown of thorns without knowing that he actually had started, plans 15 years ago. So Dubuisson researched the history of the crown, and then also from the origins to the reliquary church of Saint-Chapelle on the island, not far from Notre Dame. But he also channeled Abbé Suger, who basically was the creator of the Gothic churches when he designed the Basilique Saint-Denis in the north of Paris. So what he did with this is that he created the back of it, and it's made from cedar, which is to emulate the true cross. And then cut into that, he cut 360 openings, and each opening, they're bigger at the top than at the bottom, and each opening has a gilded bronze thorn. So they represent the thorn from the crown of thorns, which we'll put a link to the episode we did about that, I think, oh gosh, almost a year ago. That each of these thorns was like 1.5 inches long. They're not like the thorns on a rose bush. These were big, long, like a needle. And that's what they kind of look like, and they're gilded. And the gilded gold is reminiscent of a Byzantine church, which goes back to when the crown of thorns was found and kept in the 4th century, or was discovered in the 5th century. And it's absolutely amazing. And the light that comes in through the back, in the center of it, there's a big like circle, and it's 396 glass cabochons. They're each etched with like a Greek cross in the center, and then they're backed with 24-karat gold gilding. When the crown of thorns is on view, which it was just on view on this past Friday the 13th, it hangs in the center and the back of it is a very specific blue called Klein blue, the artist Yves Klein. And it looks amazing. I wasn't able to see it Friday, but I saw pictures of it hanging in front of this beautiful blue. It's over 11 feet tall. And Dubuisson did it so that the center of it is just above eye level. So it could be seen from wherever you are. If they're kneeling or they're sitting and praying, you could see it. At the base of it is a huge Carrara marble base. And has a safe in there. And that's where the crown of thorns is kept, locked very safely away when it's not on view. And then it's topped with 100 LED, like they're supposed to kind of represent candles. But Dubuisson worked with the Atelier Saint-Jacques, the Fonderie Coubertin, the glassmaker Olivier Juteau, and a light sculptor Patrick Rimeau, and then also the Atelier de Rocoux for the gilding. And the entire team worked together at the same time to get it done, and it took over 4,800 hours to finish.
That's insane.
And it is pretty gorgeous in person. I mean, because of this week only, I was always going, the earliest I got there was 3:30. And, it gets dark so early now that I was trying to take in the church, because the church is a very different place, whether it's daylight or at night. Because of the daylight, you could really see the beautiful stained glass windows. But even at the late day, or even after the sun went down, it is so beautiful and so golden and just shining. It's pretty amazing to see. And they have pews in front of it, and it's roped off. So you're only supposed to be in there if you are praying, or sitting there quietly. You're not supposed to be going in there taking pictures or selfies, which seems to be a problem right now in Notre Dame. But I sat in there for like 45 minutes, and it just like looking at it and taking everything in, and the ceilings that are this, every single thing has been restored, and it's stunning. Also is a piece of the true cross and one of the nails that was also part of the Passion that was used when Jesus was, put up on the cross when he died. And those are there too, but they're never on display. So I think they just have them locked away underneath, but I have not seen those on display.
Well, hopefully soon everything will be out because we would love to see it all restored.
I know those things. I mean, those two were hardly ever taken out. So, and what I did read on one thing, it was saying that the container that they were in was destroyed in the fire. So, I don't know. I'm trying to find some more information on that. Also, with the crown of thorns, normally, and if you remember from the episode we did about it, it was that the veneration of the crown of thorns and the rules of when it could be shown was set up by Saint Louis. So Louis the Ninth, he got this in 1238, and he's the one who set the rules. And it was not the Catholic Church; it was Saint Louis, and they're supposed to follow those. And so, having it come out on December 13th was not a first Friday, because it was always in the past the first Friday of every month, and then every Friday of Lent. And I have seen two different conflicting things that starting in January, it'll be taken out every Friday until Good Friday. And I've also seen that it will come out from January 10th to like beginning of April on Fridays. But that doesn't make sense to me because it was always out during Lent. So I'm going to keep until I find it from an official source of Notre Dame itself. I'll let everybody know when I find that, because it is, whether you believe it or not, it's when I first saw it, and I'm not Catholic, I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I wasn't close because the people go up to it and they, they're holding it and people pray to it and kiss it and stuff. And I didn't get close to it because I'd love to see it, but I don't want to be disrespectful for the people that are going to, pray to it. But it is a pretty massive piece of history, and probably the most, important piece of reliquary in the world.
Exactly. And like I always tell people the same thing about the Sacre-Cœur, like even if you're not religious, go inside because it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. I just was up there the other day, and walking around, and the mosaics in Sacre-Cœur. We definitely need to do one about that because it's so stunning, especially over the altar. It is so beautiful inside there, and just the work. And when you look at the tiles and the mosaics of Sacre-Cœur, they're not all little squares. They're like all sorts of crazy shapes. And it's like, I mean, I love a jigsaw puzzle, but I don't know, but that's a lot of tedious patience.
Exactly. I would not be able to do it.
No, but one thing last is, if you do want to go see Notre Dame, it's, I'll give you guys another update next week after it's been open back to normal times to see how it is. But there's all sorts of different reports this last week. There's, the first day on Monday, they just weren't letting anybody in unless you had a ticket with a QR code. The tickets have been really hard to get. There's an app, the Notre Dame app. If you look online, it's like a blue box with the N and D. Make sure you're not getting something that's not the official one. People are saying it's been easier to get the tickets on the app than it is on the website. But the biggest, most important thing that I also mentioned last week, to get the tickets, it is only the day before or the day of. So if you're coming in January or February or March, you cannot get that ticket until about maybe 36 hours out. But also, if you just go to the church, you probably have to wait in line for a while. But also go and say that you're going to go. If you want to go in there and you want to go to mass, or you just want to go in there and say a prayer, also tell them that. And I'm not going to tell you that maybe that's a trick, but it's just going to change. It's also going to change on the time of the year. But it does seem to be by the end of this last week, there was a lot of people I knew that just waited and they went in.
Well, there you go, guys. You know how to enter, and definitely keep us updated. We love to hear from you, and check out ClaudineHemingway.com for more information.
Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.